Hey guys, I wanted to talk about Annie Blackburn today. After her mention in the last episode of Twin Peaks Season 3, Part 7. This will have spoilers for the secret history of Twin Peaks if you haven't read that book yet, but it is pretty important information, and I don't know that this would actually spoil the whole book experience or anything like that. So proceed with caution if you're planning on reading the book tomorrow or something like that. Alright, so let's start out with what we know about Annie from the television show and the movie. Annie Blackburn is played by Heather Graham, and we learn that in her senior year of high school, she was in a relationship that ended badly, and then she attempted suicide. After that, she moved into a convent for 5 years. She eventually left there and came back to her hometown of Twin Peaks and went to see her sister Norma at the Double R. She ends up getting a job there, she ends up meeting Cooper there, and I won't get into all the details of their courting, but they basically fell head over heels in love. As their romance was blossoming, she ended up winning the Miss Twin Peaks contest at the end of Season 2, then being kidnapped by Wyndham Earle and taken into the Red Room with him by entering the portal at Glastonbury Grove. Agent Cooper pursued them, and this is more or less how we got to where we are now with Cooper's doppelganger and everything else that's happened in the Red Room. She left the Red Room with what she thought was Cooper, but in reality we know it was evil Cooper. She turned up in Firewalk with Me in a dream to deliver the message to Laura that we got through her diary pages in Part 7 of Season 3. Her message was that, her name was Annie Blackburn, that she's been with Dale, the good Dale's in the lodge and he can't leave, and so on and so forth. There was also a cut scene included in the Missing Pieces DVD extra where we saw a nurse take the alcove ring from her as she's being wheeled into the hospital. And that's what we've seen of Annie on screen, and it's absolutely worth mentioning that even though she came into the series late, she had been firmly intertwined into the story because of her relationship with Coop and their trip behind the red curtain. Most of what happened in the back end of Season 2 is not necessarily important to what's going on now, but she was certainly one of the most important characters. This is why it was a really big shock when she wasn't listed as one of the returning cast for Season 3. People noticed that right away because everybody's been wondering what happened to Annie, and there were even interviews where Heather Graham was asked about if she was returning and basically said she would have loved to reprise the role, but she just wasn't asked, or she just never heard any news about being in the new season. Then the secret history of Twin Peaks was released, and some details directly related to Annie caught everyone's attention pretty much as soon as they read it. So I talk about the secret history of Twin Peaks quite a bit, and there is a lot of really important information in this book as it's related to the overall story of both the original run and what's going on in Season 3 right now. I recommend it if you haven't seen it or looked it over or whatever. There's always a link in my descriptions, my video descriptions, to check it out on Amazon. But anyways, it came out after the filming of Season 3 was already complete. Like, it was written by Mark Frost, who's the co-creator of Twin Peaks, separately from David Lynch, but they had been coordinating at the same time to shoot the scenes for Season 3 and write the episodes and all that stuff, so it wasn't released until after all that stuff was done. So there was quite a few things that were contradictory to things we had already seen on screen in Seasons 1 and 2. And the first thing related to Annie that was odd was that there's like an extra biography of Norma Jennings, who runs the Double R, which doesn't really need to be there otherwise. But anyways, in this version of Norma, her maiden name was Lindstrom. She had a mother named Ilsa and a father named Marty, and there isn't any mention of having a little sister named Annie whatsoever. Now, since you probably watched Season 2, you're thinking, well, what about the one that we saw in the show? Her mother in the show, she was in several episodes, right? Yeah, her mom was supposed to be a food critic who went by the pen name of M.T. Wentz. And if you remember at that time, everyone at the Double R was trying to go the extra mile just in case this famous writer and critic came in to eat so that they could get a good review. Yeah, her name was Vivian Smythe Niles. She came with that guy, Ernie, who had known Hank from prison, and I don't think that's all that important, but it was a part of show canon that was Norma's mother. Then the secret history comes out, and she has a different mother. Mark Frost was asked about this, and basically he acknowledged that that is different, and that he wasn't going to say anything else more about it. We'd have to wait and see what the explanation was. There was also some rewriting of that Miss Twin Peaks contest I spoke about earlier. Mark Frost has said, when asked about this, that Lana had won the Miss Twin Peaks contest. So she was basically either stripped of her crown or something else happened in that Lana eventually became the queen. So there's a lot of just wild speculation we can make here, but I think it's really interesting that in part 7, it is by saying that, I mean, Hawk didn't have to say that Annie Blackburn was who wrote that letter. If they wanted to write Annie out of the series for some reason, you wouldn't mention her name, but he did. So this makes a big problem. We have the one version of Annie that we saw, Norma's little sister that fell in love with Cooper, went into the Red Room, came out, was in the hospital, and now is seemingly nowhere to be found. And then we have this history of Twin Peaks where she wasn't the queen of the pageant we saw her win, and she wasn't in the same family that we know that she should be in. So this is the problem. I am not here to answer or solve the problem. I'm here to bring it up and start a discussion. Now, there are some pretty wild theories out there, and the kind of wild theories that are written well and you can kind of jump into. The one that stands out the most to me is season 3 is an alternate reality or an alternate universe. I'm not advocating that that's what's going on. I'm just saying that if you read that theory, it's pretty well put together. But, you know, the bottom line is we have a character, she exists in our universe, and we don't have a great idea of why all this revision has come into play. She could be and could have always been somebody who was put into the world by the guys in the lodges to lure Cooper in. But how do we get from there to here? Hawk knows who she is, but does Norma? You know, it's very confusing. Let me know what you think. Please like the video and subscribe to my channel. I'm going to be trying to do more bonus videos like this in the coming weeks. So let me know some feedback. Let me know what you want to see. Thanks for watching. I'll talk to you soon.